Well, after all. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead. Go ahead and turn to the broadcast. What was it? It was broadcast guidelines. You got broadcast guidelines. Now, it's interesting. If you look at previous editions, going way, 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 way back on the Associated Press, they have always had a chapter like this, but they haven't always called it broadcast guidelines because the Associated Press didn't always broadcast. I can't remember the year. I actually did look it up once where they put it in there. But what they teach you here is what they require here of their broadcasters. They actually require it of everyone. And this is, they don't think they refer to it ever as the inverted pyramid on this. But the reason it's called the inverted pyramid is because if you look at a real pyramid, let's see if I can draw. If you look at a real pyramid, of course, the smallest thing is on top. And if you look at so if you invert it, then the biggest thing is on top. Now this is an important thing for, I don't know if that'll even show up, but this is an important thing for journalists. This is an important thing for journalists because it's really, really different than like fiction writing. You know, especially even if you're writing fiction, there's an extent to which, or if you're writing just narrative essays, right? There's kind of an extent to where you want to surprise the reader at some point. That's something where like, whoa, there it is. But every now and then you'll read something. I don't know. One of my favorite publications. I've already mentioned this on you for editorials. Is I like to read the National Review. I think they write in a witty way, and I think it's kind of fun. But one of the things that they'll do is they will critique. I wouldn't really consider them a news organization because they're very partisan, one-sided. But they'll critique other news organizations, and they'll sometimes point out that something has been buried in the third paragraph. That, like, you know, the National Review tends to be more conservative, although they're very anti-Trump, but they tend to be more conservative. And so they'll say something on there like, you know, it mentions this possible crime by Hillary Clinton, but it's buried in the third paragraph, right? And so if you were writing just a narrative essay, or if you were writing nonfiction or fiction or something like that, to have this surprise that comes out in the third, that would be, first of all, probably at the beginning, because in general, narrative essays are longer than most journalistic essays. It's not 100% true, but a lot of them. But so you want to get the most important stuff right away. So let's take a look at this. Now I know Eric has already done some correction on it. And in this case, the Mustang, we are not hacks. However, we have written our editorial policy, and one of the things in there is we are pro-WNMU, right?
Yeah.
Hacks are people who pose as journalists, but they're actually, that's a pejorative term. You know, it's a mean thing to say, but because it's a bad thing to be. You pose as a journalist, but you're actually public relations. So you go in, and you can figure out hacks if you watch, especially the yelling at each other shows, I call them, where somebody comes in and they take a left-leaning stance. You can see some people, their arguments aren't really from policy; it's from party. And it doesn't matter what the Democratic or the Republican Party does; they're going to be for what that party does, no matter what. So we're not hacks, but we do say we're for WNMU. In general, a paragraph like the first one, I don't need to know. A paragraph like the first one would not go in a journalistic article.
All right, that's mine. That's mine.
Okay. It wouldn't go in a journalistic article. Can you understand why?
No.
Okay. Because it's one of the finest programs offered at Western New Mexico University. The Department of Community and Workforce Development is one of the finest. Putting something like that in shows that the entire article is going to be biased. Right? And because of our broadcasting guidelines, you begin with the lead. Especially here in the lead, to put a biased sentence saying something positive. Not just a fact, but positive. Finest isn't measurable. You can't prove that. Right? So it is just an opinion. And putting something like that in the first, in fact, I would probably, and maybe I'll even let Eric know, I think this should probably be moved to an editorial. Because once you have that in there, especially in the lead, because remember, you start with the lead, and that is the most important thing. And so the first thing I find out that's going to be the most important thing about this article is that this is the finest. And that's going to make me see the whole article as bias. I would even be careful with things like help students excel. While saying that they do. Now, if you said their goal is to help students excel, that's less of an opinion. But if you say that they help students excel, already you're doing that. So how could we rewrite that to make it a more journalistic lead? Probably what I'd do is, you could say it's just one of the programs. You could say there's a central program.
Yeah.
That's still probably unprovable.
It's probably just better to take out finest.
It would probably be best to take out finest, although you're not saying anything then. It's just one of the programs. So maybe you could do the Department of Community and Workforce Development has 4 categories with the goal of helping students excel in each of these areas of applied technology, or something like that. Because you just say, and then you do want to get Western New Mexico University in there. So the Department of Community and Workforce Development at Western New Mexico University has 4 categories that go ahead and leave it. That can help students excel in the area of applied technology. That would be a lead. That's the most important. And that's the thing with the lead, is a lot of times your first paragraph, your lead, which should be your first paragraph. Sometimes they make the lead the headline, and sometimes headlines are referred to as leads. That's okay. I think it's wrong. But I hear people using it that way, and I hear professionals using it that way. So I guess I will defer to them. Okay, then the program is divided into 4 different trades: welding, construction, electrical, computer technology, and computer technology. That's a good sentence. Each category offers 1 fast-track certificate program and 1 associate degree. The certificate program offers up to 4 levels of clarification, not including core certifications, and it only takes around 6 to 12 weeks to accomplish. Only is probably a biased word, but it's okay. The associate degree takes up to 2 years. Now, if you switched those, the associate degree takes up to 2 years, and then you leave the word only in the second sentence, then it sounds like a comparison.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't probably sound so biased. Okay, welding technology deals with basic metals such as aluminum alloys, stainless steel, carbon steel, and sheet metal. Joining the program will give the student proper knowledge on how to weld oxyacetylene, tungsten arc welding, gas metal arc welding, MIG, and shielded metal arc plates and pipes. Students can also learn specific styles of cutting such as plasma, oxyfuel, and gas metal arc. The program uses green technologies and is environmentally friendly. I think that maybe you should say also. The program also uses green technology. Normally I wouldn't want to put that in there, but I know for a fact some of those are not green technologies. Right? If you use those, you are at least increasing your carbon footprint. But students in welding courses attain the certificate on both national and international levels. Some have been able to do it before leaving high school. Careers found in these. Okay. So, what we're getting into here at this point is, so I think you did pretty well as far as at this point, looking at the reverse pyramid structure. At this point, you're getting into details, right? This is details. Now, let's see the rest of it. This could be a detail, but maybe not. Program of visit. Some classes include electrical theory, blueprints. If you were to write this this is readable, right? But if you were to write this in perfect reverse pyramid structure, what you've done here, and there's no reason, and here's the thing, and like I said, they bury the story of Hillary Clinton in the third paragraph, that type of thing. What you've done, because people who read journalism know, whether they know it consciously or not, when you read a journalistic article, you know you're following reverse pyramid structure. So what you're saying here, whether you mean to or not, is that electrical is more important than construction, computer, and than construction and computer, which is what you and skilled craftsmen demand on a global scale. So, if you were to write this really perfectly, what you'd want to do is somehow get it so that you can tell these two stories together. Because this is details, and this is details, and this is background. So that's okay. But this is details, and this is details. This is details, and this is details. But this and this are backing, so it's broken up, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, you couldn't just move these paragraphs and fix that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work. That wouldn't make any sense if you just switched that. They would have to be, if you wanted to get this in reverse pyramid, they would have to be rewritten to make that make sense. It's not just a matter of moving paragraphs. So those are kind of what I do, and then you do. I think skilled craftsmen are on high demand. 2-year degrees is a dedicated program. All of that stuff. That's actually, like, if you cut that out, and that's the point behind it. If you cut that out, it'll make perfect sense, right? You don't even need. And when you're doing essay writing, of course, you need a good conclusion. You need to remember that in the other class you're taking. You need a good conclusion, because that's a different kind of writing. You need a good conclusion where you restate your thesis and put your main points, but you don't do that here, and this is right. This is right for this kind of writing. And so overall, I would say this is a pretty good example. And if those of you watching on the video want to pull it up, just go to the Mustang. It's one of if your first articles on there, the Applied Technology Program, and you can see what we're talking about. The Applied Technology Program offers opportunities for students, but you'll see it. If someday you watch this far in the future, go to 2016 and October.
No, yeah.
It was an October story. It's November now, but it was an October story. So that's what I'd do with this. I think overall this is good. Now some of the things that I know happened. It's a good idea when you're dealing with things that are maybe outside of your knowledge base. And I know Eric talked to you about this too. To go back and after you've written the article, say, was this accurate? And in this case, the reason Eric had to do additional reporting is because it wasn't. And now it is. But that's okay. That's okay. People tell me, I'm wrong on a regular basis, right? And there's nothing wrong with being wrong. What's wrong is if you don't correct it when you're wrong. And so it's totally okay to even send an email off with the copy of the story saying, what do you think? How, is this factually correct? A source doesn't have the right to edit tone. And if a source said something and you've got it recorded that he or she said something and they come back and tell you they didn't say something, well, forget them. But yeah, in ethnography, that's actually a required part of the process. If you're doing true ethnography, is if one of your subjects says something, you have to go back and make sure that they agreed that that's what they said. But that's a little different because you're trying to write the culture. In journalism, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. And a big journalistic outfits, if you were working at CNN, your job would be to go back and fact check the article, because you're not going to get a job as an anchor for this, right?
Yeah, right.
But seriously, you could probably right out of college if you wanted to, try and find probably first year be unpaid with something like CNN, and what you do is they write their stories and you go back and make sure that the quotes are accurate. And if they're not, then it's up to the journalists and editors to decide what to do with that. Because if somebody says, no, I didn't say that, and the journalist, yes, you did, they can decide whether or not they want to open themselves up to that. So that's a separate thing, but it has to do with, maybe even should have turned off the camera because it doesn't have anything to do with what we're really supposed to discuss today. But that was something that came up in the writing of this article, I know. But yeah, fact checking, going back and making sure you're okay. Some people worry that that's going to be dishonest, right? If you get your source, if they can say it again, it's not. It's not dishonest. It's dishonest if they really do try and change what they said or change their tone. So if he really did tell you a bunch of things that weren't true about welding, about aluminum, you can't weld aluminum. But you can weld aluminum alloys. But if he had told you we weld aluminum, boy, this would have been the place to come. Because we're the only ones who can do it. So, yeah, if he had really said that, and you had evidence that he said that, then it's okay. Which gets back to last week's why we need to use various things to record, why it's a good idea to record. And most of us with our smartphones now, we can just set down our phone and record. And it's a good idea to do that when you're
I did it.
with him.
Yeah. And then we got into a workshop, but it was loud.
It was loud in there? Okay. But yeah, it's a good idea to record, because then if he does come back, and even if you record, if somebody just misstates something and they tell you they misstated it, then what they tell you now is also a quote from them. It just didn't come from that interview, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes somebody says, something like, some politician is a mass murderer, and then you go back and they say, no, he's a nice guy. Because the politics have changed, the facts haven't. And then you're like, no, I've got you recorded saying this before, and now I've got you recorded saying that you didn't mean that. So, and in situations like that, it's okay. But that's a kind of a separate thing. As far as reverse pyramid structure goes, I don't know. I've mentioned before the history behind it. It goes back to the telegraph, and it goes back to the telegraph. Sometimes the whole story wouldn't get through, so you want to make sure the most important stuff gets done first, before the wires get burned or something. Also, then when you're cutting it for the paper, back when they were physically cutting stories with a razor blade, and you want to make sure it fits on the page, then you might find, well, this story is just too long. If you cut the end of it, that's okay. And actually with broadcast, it still kind of works that way. They've got an hour. The reporters go out and do their stories, and then or a half hour. Most of them run a half hour. Most broadcast news runs a half hour. The story, the reporters go out and do their stories, and the producers, editors, and directors who function as in more of an editorial role there end up cutting the ends off of them quite a bit.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And that's okay. That's okay, because the details are not as important as the backing, and the background. It's really nice to know if you've got time to do it. And so, your background paragraphs. Those are about the last 3 paragraphs we have on here. The last 2. Those background paragraphs. Those are about what you would expect from a journalistic article. So that's good. That's good. So, I guess that's it. I'm going to put this on YouTube and move it to the website, and maybe people will get some use out of it. I hope so. Have a pleasant day. The fact that my light's still on, I think, means that it's still recording. Yep. Oh, that was... Come on.